The galaxy had one simple rule. No race gets left behind. No planet gets forgotten. Every empire, every world, every living thing, they all had a place. They all belonged somewhere. Until humanity broke that rule. And for that one mistake, the galaxy decided to throw them away. This is the story of how humanity was cast out. Pushed into the darkest, coldest corner of space. A place where no ship had ever come back from. A place the rest of the galaxy pretended did not exist. But this is also the story of what humanity found there. And why the galaxy would never, ever be the same again. The room was cold. Not cold like winter on Earth. Cold like deep space. Cold like a heart that had already made up its mind. Hundreds of alien leaders sat in a giant circle. Their seats rose high into the air, one above the other, like a great wall of judgment. There were tall blue creatures from the Velthari worlds. There were the heavy stone-faced Dorkai, who had never once smiled in 3,000 years. There were the small silver beings from the Mareth cluster, whose 6 eyes watched everything and missed nothing. And in the middle of all of them, standing alone on a small round platform, was one single human. Captain Kale Doran. 42 years old. Broad shoulders. Short dark hair. A small scar above his left eye from a battle most people had already forgotten. He stood straight. His hands were at his sides. He did not beg. He did not look down. He looked directly at the council and waited. The head of the council, a tall gray being called the Prime Voice, stood up slowly. Its voice was low and flat, like something being read from a very old book. Humanity has broken the law of the Galactic Accord. They entered a protected system. They made contact with a restricted species. They refused to follow orders when told to stop. For this, the Council has decided. Humanity is removed. Removed. Just one word. But it hit Kale like a wall. He looked around the room. He waited for someone to speak. For someone to say something in their defense. For one alien leader, just one, to stand up and say that this was not right. No one did. The Prime Voice pointed one long gray finger toward the large screen behind it. On the screen was a map of the galaxy. And at the very edge of that map, past all the known stars, past all the safe routes, past every outpost and trade world, there was a small dark area. No name. No color. Just darkness. You will take your ships. You will take your people. You will go there. And you will not come back. 12 ships. That was all humanity had. 12 ships carrying 4,308 people. Men and women. Old and young. Scientists, soldiers, farmers, engineers, teachers, and children. All of them now moving slowly through space, away from everything they knew, toward a place that had no name. Inside the lead ship, the UHS Meridian, the halls were quiet. Not the quiet of a peaceful night. The quiet of people who had nothing left to say. Families sat together in small rooms. Some held hands. Some stared at the walls. Some of the children slept, because they were too young to understand what was happening. Kale walked slowly through the ship. He passed room after room. He looked through the small glass windows in the doors and saw his people, tired, scared, but still there. Still together. He stopped at the front window of the ship. Outside was nothing but black space and a million cold stars. He reached into the chest pocket of his jacket and pulled out a small photograph. It was old and worn at the edges. A photo of a blue-green planet seen from space. Earth. He looked at it for a long time. No one spoke. Because there was nothing to say. They were not flying toward hope. They were not flying toward safety. They were flying toward the end. Or at least, that is what everyone believed. For 46 days, there was nothing. No planets. No stars close enough to matter. No signs of life. Just the slow, heavy silence of deep space. Food supplies were getting low. 3 of the 12 ships had engine problems. People were tired and sad and starting to lose hope. On the 47th day, something changed. It started as a small noise on the scanner, like a whisper in a very large empty room. Most of the crew ignored it. Noise happened in deep space all the time. Old star signals. Dead radio waves from ancient explosions. It meant nothing. But Mia Solis did not ignore it. Mia was 26 years old. She was the youngest senior engineer on the Meridian. She had short hair that she cut herself every few weeks, and she always had a small notebook in her hand where she wrote down every single thing that did not make sense, because in her experience, the things that did not make sense were always the most important things. She pulled up the signal on her screen and stared at it. Then she ran it again. And again. Her fingers moved fast over the controls. Her face was calm, but her eyes were wide. She stood up. She walked quickly to Captain Kale's room. She knocked twice and opened the door without waiting for an answer, something she only did when it was very important. Kale looked up from the table where he was sitting. He could see it in her face. Something was wrong. Or something was very, very different. "Sir," Mia said quietly. "I found a signal. It is not random noise. It is a pattern. A real pattern. Someone made this signal on purpose." Kale stood up. "How old is it?" Mia looked at her notebook. Then she looked back at him. Her voice was very steady, but her hands were shaking. 10,000 years old, sir. This signal is 10,000 years old. And it is not fading. It is getting stronger. It is coming from somewhere ahead of us. And it is calling us by name." Kale walked to the main screen. He looked at the data. He looked at the signal pattern. He looked at the direction it was coming from. There was a planet ahead. Not on any map. Not on any list. A planet the galaxy had not named, or had decided to pretend did not exist. The signal was coming from that planet. And it was not just a sound. It was a message. A real message. In perfect, clear, simple human language. 7 words. 7 words that made the hair stand up on the back of Kale's neck and sent a chill through every person on the ship who heard them. Kale did not move. No one on the ship moved. The only sound was the quiet hum of the engines, and the slow, steady pulse of the signal, like a heartbeat coming from the dark. "We have been waiting for you." The planet had no color from far away. It looked dead. Gray and silent like an old stone left at the bottom of a river for 10,000 years. No green. No blue. No sign of water, life, or movement. But as the Meridian got closer, something strange happened. The lights came on. Not all at once. One by one, like someone walking through a giant dark house and turning on every single room. First a soft yellow glow from what looked like a city far below. Then blue lines, long and perfectly straight, that lit up across the ground like a giant map drawn in light. Then, finally, a deep pulse. A slow, steady heartbeat of white light rising from the center of the planet and going straight up into space. Like a signal fire. Like something saying, "Here. Come here." The planet was not dead. It was waiting. And now that the humans had arrived, it had decided it was time to wake up. Kale stood at the front window of the Meridian and watched the lights grow stronger. Behind him, the entire bridge crew had gone completely silent. No one moved. No one spoke. Even the engines seemed to go quieter, as if the ship itself was holding its breath. Mia stood beside him with her notebook open. She was writing fast, 3 lines, 4 lines, 5 lines, trying to record everything she was seeing. But her pen stopped when the white pulse rose from the planet's surface for the third time. She looked at Kale. "Captain. That pulse, it is not just a signal. It is a door opening." They landed 6 ships. The other 6 stayed in orbit, just in case. The moment Kale stepped off the ship and put his foot on the ground, he felt it. Not just through his boots. Through his whole body. A low, deep vibration coming up from the earth beneath him. Not dangerous. Not threatening. More like a greeting. Like the ground itself knew someone had arrived. The city stretched out in front of them for kilometers. Buildings made of dark stone stood perfectly straight, no cracks, no damage, no dust. Not one wall had fallen. Not one window had broken. It was as if time had simply decided not to touch this place. Streets ran in perfect patterns between the buildings. Tall thin poles stood at every corner, now glowing with soft white light. There were open spaces, like parks, where the ground was covered in smooth flat stone, each piece carved with hundreds of tiny symbols too small to read from a distance. And there were doors. Hundreds of them. All closed. All waiting. No one had been here. But everything was ready. The lights worked. The paths were clean. Even the air was good, warm and breathable and carrying the faint smell of something ancient but not unpleasant. Like old books in a library that no one had opened in a very long time. Kale's soldier team spread out slowly, weapons ready but not raised. They walked down the main street of the city, looking left and right, checking every shadow. Nothing attacked them. Nothing moved. The city was not a trap. It was a gift. And it was waiting for someone to open it. Mia found it first. At the very center of the city stood a building taller than all the others. Its walls were completely covered, from the ground all the way to the top, in carvings. Not random shapes. Not decorations. A story. A real story, written in symbols that covered every single centimeter of every wall. Mia pressed her scanner against the surface. The machine worked for a long time. Then it beeped once and showed her the translation. She read the first line. Then the second. Then the third. She stopped. She read it again. Her scanner fell from her hand and hit the ground. She did not pick it up. Kale was standing 5 meters away when he heard the scanner fall. He walked over quickly. He looked at Mia's face. Her eyes were wide and completely still, like someone who had just heard something so large and so unexpected that their brain had not caught up yet. "Mia. Talk to me. What does it say?" She did not answer immediately. She just pointed at the wall. At the first section. At a carving near the bottom, a simple shape that Kale had seen 10,000 times in his life and never expected to see on a world at the edge of the universe. It was a drawing of Earth. Not just a round planet. Specifically Earth. The continents. The oceans. The exact shape, carved into stone 10,000 years ago on a planet no map had ever named. "Captain," Mia said slowly. Her voice was very quiet. Almost a whisper. "The people who built this city, the ones the carvings call the founders, they did not come from here. They did not come from any world in the known galaxy. They came from Earth. They were human. They were us. 10,000 years ago, a group of humans left Earth and came here and built an empire so powerful that the rest of the galaxy was afraid of them. And when that empire ended, they did not die. They planned. They hid everything they had built. Their ships. Their technology. Their weapons. Their knowledge. All of it. Hidden here. And they left one message behind. One instruction. For whoever came next. Kale looked at the wall. He looked at the image of Earth carved into the stone. He felt something move in his chest, something between pain and pride and a kind of fury that had no words for it yet. What does the message say? Mia picked up her scanner from the ground. She turned it toward the final section of the wall, a short block of symbols near the bottom right corner. She read the translation out loud. Slowly. One word at a time. For a long time, no one in the group said anything. Then, deep beneath the city, something moved. A low, heavy sound, like a giant machine waking up after a very long sleep. The ground shook once. Then again. Then, from all around them, from below the streets and below the buildings and below the stone, the sound grew louder. Lights appeared in the ground. Ancient doors began to open, not the small doors of buildings, but giant doors in the earth itself, each one wide enough to fly a ship through. And from below those doors, rising slowly into the gray sky of the nameless planet, came the ships. Not 12 ships. Not 100. 500 ancient founder ships, each one 3 times the size of anything the current galaxy had ever built, rising from the ground one by one, their lights burning gold and white, their hulls unmarked by time, their engines humming with a power that made the air itself shake. Kale looked up at them. His mouth was open. His hands were shaking, not from fear this time. From something else entirely. They were not exiles anymore. They were not refugees. They were not the small, weak, forgotten race that the galaxy had thrown away like garbage. In one moment, in the space of a single heartbeat, humanity had gone from having nothing to having everything. And somewhere across the galaxy, in every council room and every palace and every war room of every alien empire that had ever looked down at humans and laughed, not one of them had any idea what was coming. Kale looked at the ships. He looked at the wall. He looked at the image of Earth carved into stone 10,000 years ago by people who were just like him, people who had been pushed, and had refused to fall. He put the old photograph back in his pocket. Then he smiled. Slow and quiet. Like a decision that had already been made a very long time ago. And Captain Kale Doran said 2 words. We go home. The inside of a founder ship was nothing like a human ship. A human ship had buttons. Screens. Handles. Cables running through the walls. It smelled like metal and engine oil and recycled air. It felt like something built by people who were in a hurry. A founder ship felt like walking into a living thing. The walls were smooth and warm to the touch, not cold metal but something that felt almost like skin, like the ship was breathing slowly around you. The controls were not buttons or screens. They were flat surfaces that lit up under your fingers and responded not just to touch, but to thought. To intention. If you looked at a control panel and thought about wanting to move forward, the ship moved forward. If you thought about wanting to see outside, the walls themselves became transparent and you were standing inside a bubble of clear material looking out at the stars in every direction. It took 3 days for the human engineers to stop being afraid of the ships. It took 3 more days for them to start loving them. Mia was the first one to figure out the weapons system. She was not trying to. She was sitting in the main chair of one of the smaller founder ships, running her fingers across the control surface, thinking, completely by accident, about how angry she was. Angry at the council. Angry at the exile. Angry at all the years humanity had spent trying to be accepted by a galaxy that never wanted them. The ship heard her. Outside, in the gray sky above the nameless planet, a beam of light appeared from the ship's hull, not a laser, not a missile, but something with no name in any human language. It hit an empty patch of sky and opened a hole. Not an explosion. A hole. A clean, perfect circle of nothing where space used to be. It stayed open for 4 seconds and then closed again without a sound. Every human within sight of it went completely still. Mia looked at her own hands. Then she looked up at the sky where the hole had been. Oh. She said quietly. Oh, that is very, very bad for whoever is on the other side of us. On the 9th day, Kale sent the message. He did not shout. He did not make threats. He did not list what they had found or describe the ships or explain what the founder technology could do. He had thought carefully about what to say for 9 full days, and in the end, he decided that the most powerful thing he could do was say very little. The message was sent on every frequency used by every alien civilization in the known galaxy. Council rooms. Military channels. Private government lines. Trade networks. All of them. At exactly the same moment, every receiver in the galaxy picked up a single transmission. Kale's face. His voice. Calm. Still. Looking directly into the camera like he was looking directly at every person watching. He spoke for 43 seconds. Then the transmission ended. In the great council hall where humanity had been exiled, the prime voice was sitting in its tall chair when the message arrived. Around it, dozens of advisors and alien leaders watched the screen. When the transmission ended, no one in that room spoke for a very long time. Finally, one of the small silver beings from the Mareth cluster, a species famous for never showing emotion, turned to the prime voice. Its 6 eyes were wide. Its hands were pressed flat against the table. What did he say? The prime voice was quiet for a moment. Then it said, very carefully, as if the words were fragile. He said he forgives us. He said humanity bears no anger toward any race or any world. He said they did not come back for revenge. He said they came back because this galaxy is their home, and it always was. He said the founders built it. And now their children have returned. And then he said one more thing. Another long silence. He said, the door is open. Any world that wants to stand beside humanity, not below them, not above them, beside them, is welcome. But the exile is over. And it will never happen again. Not to anyone. Not ever. The room was completely still. Then the Mareth being said the thing that everyone in that room was already thinking but no one had been willing to say out loud. We made a very, very serious mistake. They came out of deep space in a single line. 500 founder ships, gold and white, enormous and silent, moving through the galaxy in perfect formation with 12 smaller human ships at the front. Not hidden. Not slow. Moving at full speed down the most traveled route in the known galaxy, past every major station, every trade world, every military outpost. Every alien ship they passed stopped moving. Every station went silent. Every radar screen in the galaxy lit up at once, showing the same thing, a fleet of vessels that should not exist, piloted by a species that was supposed to be gone. There are moments in history that divide time into 2 pieces. Before. And after. What happened on that day was one of those moments. Every species in the galaxy that was old enough to have records looked back through their history and found the same thing, old warnings, old stories, old fears about the day the founders would return. They had called it many things. The Great Reckoning. The Second Age. The Day of Remembering. They had told themselves it was just a story. Just an old legend from a time no one truly remembered. They were wrong. The fleet passed through the outer systems without stopping. Past the Velthari borders. Past the Dorkai mining worlds. Past the Mareth stations that had once been so full of busy activity and were now completely frozen, every worker standing still and watching the sky. No one fired a single shot. No one dared. When the human fleet reached the center of the galaxy, the location of the Grand Station, where the Galactic Council met and where humanity had been exiled, Kale gave an order that surprised everyone on every ship, human and alien alike. He stopped. He did not attack. He did not demand surrender. He did not send soldiers or weapons or ultimatums. He brought the entire fleet to a full stop just outside the station, and then he did something that no one, not the alien councils, not his own crew, not even Mia, had expected. He asked if he could come inside. Alone. Without weapons. Without soldiers. Just him, walking through the station door like a visitor, like someone who had simply come to talk. The council agreed. Because what else could they do? And so Kale Doran, the man who had stood on that same round platform months ago with no power, no allies, and no hope, walked back into the council hall. The same cold room. The same high seats. The same wall of alien faces looking down at him. Except this time, not one of them was looking down. They were all sitting very straight and very still, and every single eye in that room was watching him with the same expression. An expression that humans had rarely seen from alien faces before. Respect. Real, quiet, deeply uncomfortable respect. Kale walked to the center of the room. He stood on the same small platform where he had been exiled. He looked at the prime voice. He looked around the room slowly, meeting as many eyes as he could. Then he sat down. Cross-legged on the platform. Like he was home. Like this room had always been his. And he said, "So. Let us start again. Properly this time." And so the galaxy changed. Not with a war. Not with fire and destruction. Not with 1,000 years of revenge. It changed with 43 seconds of words and one man sitting on the floor of a council room and refusing to be anything other than exactly what he was. Human. Stubborn. Unbreakable. And absolutely, completely unwilling to accept a universe that said they did not belong. The Galactic Accord was rewritten. Humanity took a permanent seat on the council, not a small seat at the edge, but the center seat. The one that had always been empty. The one that, if you looked closely at the ancient designs carved into the floor of that council hall, had always had two words written beneath it in a language no one had been able to translate for 3,000 years. Until now. Mia translated it the same afternoon. She read it once. She laughed, one short, disbelieving sound, and then she sent the translation to Kale with no explanation. He read it on his screen. He looked at it for a long time. Then he looked out the window at the stars. The two words carved beneath the center seat of the Galactic Council, carved there 10,000 years ago by the people who had built the galaxy's first and greatest empire, were very simple. Two words. Waiting for this exact moment. Humanity's seat. They were never exiles. They were never outcasts. They were never the weak ones, the small ones, the ones who did not belong. They were the first ones. And now, they were home.